SQL injection attacks still exist today. Now, I know that's kind of a funny way to start a video, but it's something that I find both bewildering yet logical all at the same time. Now, before I get into that and into code security all up, let me introduce myself real quick if you're not already familiar. I'm Christopher Harrison. I'm an enterprise advocate at GitHub. And the reason that I want to talk about code security is because it's something that every single developer needs to deal with, needs to be aware of, but yet it's something that many developers aren't, or at the very least, their skill sets really aren't necessarily where they need to be. So let's bring this back to SQL injection attacks. SQL injection has been an issue since I've been writing code, and that's for more years than I really want to go ahead and mention. And a lot of time and a lot of effort and a lot of resources have been placed into stopping SQL injection attacks. We have all sorts of great frameworks and so forth that can really sort of make it so that you have to almost, use the tools the wrong way to execute or to add in code that would open you up to a SQL injection attack. But the problem is that even though we've spent all of this time trying to update our developers and educate our developers, we still have new developers that are entering the workforce who haven't yet learned this. And we also wind up having a lot of little online tutorials that might show you the wrong way to do it, the insecure way to do it. And then they'll have this disclaimer down at the very bottom that says, oh, by the way, in production, you don't actually want to do this. And that always sort of makes me wonder, well, if it's not actually how we want to teach developers how to do something, then why are we teaching them that way? But again, that's another conversation for a different time. The upshot of all of this, the simple fact of the matter, is that we have a lot of new developers that are just starting out that haven't yet learned those types of skills. And they're not to blame. I'm not trying to blame anybody. I'm not trying to badmouth anybody. I'm simply talking about this reality that we have. So then what can we do? How can we make it such that our code is going to be protected from SQL injection vulnerabilities being checked in, but also for other vulnerabilities that maybe we're not overly familiar with, maybe vulnerabilities that we just flat don't know about, that, maybe it's something that's brand new, maybe it's something that a developer who's, experienced hasn't yet been trained up on. And what I want to explore is a service in GitHub called Code Scanning that can help find those vulnerabilities and protect you from them before they become part of your deployed code. Let's go take a real quick look here. GitHub Code Scanning is a service that, sort of like the name implies, will scan your code looking for vulnerabilities. It's built around two key components: Actions and CodeQL. If you're not already familiar with Actions, Actions is an automation tool in GitHub that can automatically do something in response to some form of a trigger. And that trigger could be somebody committing code. That trigger could be somebody putting in a PR, a pull request, or it could run on a regular schedule. And CodeQL is a query language for code. And what CodeQL is built around, what CodeQL can do for you, is it will actually take your code and compile it into a traversable binary. And what's great about that process is CodeQL then becomes aware of the code that's actually going to run, the code that's actually going to execute. And that's then what's going to be queried. Code scanning then uses CodeQL to go look for a whole host of potential vulnerabilities. And because of the fact that it's built into GitHub Actions, it really becomes seamless for the developer. If there are vulnerabilities that they're not necessarily familiar with, code scanning will act as that safety net and catch that, raise an error, say inside of the pull request, and you can also then prevent that code from being merged. Let's actually see a PR that I have over here in a little kind of sample repository that I've got. I'm going to open up my pull requests. And I've got my add insert code. And this actually has a PR to introduce a SQL injection vulnerability. And if I scroll down, I'm going to actually scroll down to here. You can see the actions that have been executed. And what you can see right here is the fact that my CodeQL scan has failed. And if I scroll back up, and this is the part that I really like, is it highlights, hey, this is the block of code right here that has the problem. It tells me what the problem is. Query might include code from this external, and I can go in and hit show more details. And it will now give me a lot of great information about SQL injection attacks, because it's not overly helpful to the developer to just simply flag something as an error, to just simply block a PR from taking place. It's a perfect learning opportunity. If I have a developer that's doing this, it might be that they were just moving too fast, weren't paying attention, or it might be, and this is going to be far more common, that it was something that they weren't familiar with. This works as a great training tool. And what's also really nice about this is that this is now not somebody else coming up to somebody and going, hey, you've got a problem here. Instead, it's in very just plain language here, explaining this is the problem with the code, and then helping the developer learn. So the advantages then that we're going to get out of this is that not only is our code going to be more secure because we're going to catch those issues before they're merged in with my deployed code, but my developers are also going to be upskilled because they're going to have that opportunity to see what the vulnerability is. They're going to have that opportunity to learn and in turn grow. If you want to explore more about code scanning, you can go ahead and check out the little URL that's right down there, which is going to be github.co/codescanning. You can also keep an eye on this channel for more information about code scanning and some other really cool things. And you can also find me on Twitter @GeekTrainer. Thanks.